Hello, I'm Raider Pilot Steve, and this is my review of the Shuttleworth Military Airshow 2025, which is held at the historic Old Warden Aerodrome. The show focused on aircraft with military history, as well as celebrating those who gave their service in the air, on land, and at sea. This was the first Shuttleworth event in 2025 that split the flying into two sections, a daytime display and an evening display. The weather through the day was sunny with clear blue skies, but the wind was a tad too rough for some of the more delicate and historic airframes. The Shuttleworth collection restores and maintains a large array of their own aircraft, and it is always worth a visit to their engineering hangar to see what is being worked on. On the day of this show, the collection's Hawker Hind, having been undergoing a lengthy overhaul, was viewable sans wings, alongside the collection's Hawker Tomtit Mark I, which was also undergoing maintenance. The main hangars on show days house the Shuttleworth Collection's aircraft that won't be displaying or are museum exhibits. There were quite a few privately owned aircraft that were also being housed. Philip Meeson's de Havilland DH-89A Dragon Rapide in British European Airways livery, Arnaldo Leon's Ryan STA in a bare metal finish, Richard Seeley's Travelair D4000 and Travelair Type R mystery ship replica. Most notable was Steve Jones's de Havilland D871 Tiger Moth replica, which is being based at Old Warden for the 2025 airshow season. It was due to display, but the winds prevented this from happening. Visitors to the show had the opportunity to take a pleasure flight in a historic aircraft, including a pair of de Havilland DH-82A Tiger Moth 2s, operated by the Cambridge Flying Group, based here at Old Warden, and a de Havilland DH-89A Dragon Rapide, operated by Skilonia Airways. The main showground had a variety of classic vehicles on display, including David Bremner's Bristol Scout C replica. The paddock area showcased the aircraft that were due to perform in the flying display. As with all shows, there is the inevitable issues that prevent aircraft from displaying, including the Shuttleworth Collection's Bristol M1C replica due to technical issues, and the Elliott's Primary Eon due to the wind conditions. There was also a good number of visiting aircraft that were on display along the main flight line, including several vintage types such as a trio of various Auster, including an Auster AOP9, an Auster D4, and an Auster J5V autocar. A de Havilland DH-82B Queen Bee, owned by the Beekeepers Flying Group. A de Havilland Canada Chipmunk T10 in Army Air Corps markings, owned by the de Havilland Educational Trust. A Nordian AT-16 Harvard 2B, owned by Hurricane Heritage. A Piper J3C 65 Cub, built in 1944, and a privately owned Yakovlev Yak 52. There was also a lot of visiting general aviation aircraft, including an AESL Air Tourer Super 150, an American General AG-5B Tiger, a Binder Aviatic CP301S Smaragd, a Breezer M400, a CEA Jodel DR221 Dolphin, a Cessna 172N Skyhawk, a Europa XS, an Evector EV97 Eurostar, a Jodel DR1050 replica, a Piper PA28 Warrior 2, a Piper PA28 Cherokee C, and a quartet of Vans aircraft, including a pair of Vans RV6s, an RV7A, and an RV8. Now on to the start of the daytime flying display. The show was opened by the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight Supermarine Spitfire Mark IIA, which gave 3 graceful flypasts. This is the only airworthy Spitfire in the world that flew during the Battle of Britain. Next up was GI Flight, a group of owners of American aircraft who have joined together to showcase the roles that American GIs played during the Second World War. The display featured a pair of Piper L4 Grasshoppers, a de Havilland DH-82A Tiger Moth II in authentic American markings, and a rare Aeroncar 058B Grasshopper. After a loose formation flypast, the individual aircraft performed their own solo routines. A special tribute to a former Shuttleworth Collection pilot was the central theme of the next display. Desmond Penrose passed away at the age of 95 on the 13th of May 2025. His life and career was celebrated by the pairing of the collection's de Havilland DH-60 Cirrus Moth and the Arrow Active II, both of which were regularly flown or owned by Desmond in the past. After a series of formation passes, the pair flew their own solo displays, including a very spirited display by the Arrow Active, which is the only example left in the world. Moving on to the theme of air racing was a fantastic solo display by the de Havilland DH-88 Comet Grosvenor House, which won the McRobertson Air Race in 1934. Although not traditionally associated as a military aircraft, it was evaluated by the Royal Air Force shortly after its race victory. We turned down the volume a tad with a gliding demonstration from Graham Saw's Letov LF-107 Lunac, which was towed up to height by the Shuttleworth Collection's Piper PA-18 150 Super Cub. As it descended, the Lunac performed a very graceful aerobatic routine, which was further enhanced with its wingtip smoke generators. Up next was a series of displays by post-war training aircraft operated by the Shuttleworth Collection. First up was the de Havilland Canada Chipmunk T-10 in Royal Canadian Air Force markings, which gave an elegant demonstration of its aerobatic capability. This was followed by the Percival P-56 Provost T-1, which showcased its own aerobatic prowess. This Provost is the only example currently airworthy. World War I then became the focus of the next segment of the flying programme, with a trio of aircraft operated by the Shuttleworth Collection. Starting this sequence was the Sopwith Pup, which was originally a two-seat Sopwith Dove before being rebuilt to this configuration sometime after Richard Shuttleworth acquired it. Next was the Avro 504K, which was built in 1918 and used by the Royal Air Force. It was even flown during World War II as a glider tug before being restored for civilian and filming use prior to joining the collection. This section was concluded by the Sopwith triplane replica, which carries the Sopwith production number 153 in its cockpit, which was bestowed upon it by Sir Thomas Sopwith, who considered it a late production model rather than just a replica aircraft. Next, we shifted to the Soviet era of aircraft with the Shuttleworth Collection's Polikarpov PO2, an incredibly versatile biplane that was used for all manner of roles. This aircraft is painted in the colours of the 588 Night Bomber Regiment, which is better known as the Night Witches. We then went back to the era of the First World War with another visiting aircraft. This was in the form of the Albatros D5A replica, owned by the World War I Aviation Heritage Trust, which is painted in a striking black and lozenge camouflage scheme. It was then joined in the air by the Shuttleworth Collection's RAF SE5A, where the pair performed an excellent dogfight sequence. Once the Albatros was seen off, the SE5A joined up with the Shuttleworth Collection's Supermarine Spitfire LF5C for a unique display of formation passes with two very different eras of aircraft technology, including a rather exciting crossover. These weren't tight formation passes due to the differing performances, but were positioned perfectly to allow the crowd to see the pair together at various points during this display. This segment was concluded by a brilliant solo display from the Spitfire. We then moved on to British training aircraft, starting off with monoplanes, which featured a pair of Miles M14A Magister 1s owned by David Bramwell and for Shuttleworth Collection, which put on a gentle formation display followed by a tail chase. Following the monoplanes was a pair of vintage biplanes in the form of the Shuttleworth Collection's Blackburn B2 and de Havilland DH82A Tiger Moth 2, which performed a similar display. The next series of displays focused on a naval aviation theme. Kicking these off was the Navy Wing's Heritage Flight's Fairy Swordfish Mark I, which performed a surprisingly nimble and tight display. This is the oldest example of a swordfish and, as far as I know, is currently the only airworthy example in the world. The departure of the swordfish back to RNAS Yeovilton marked the arrival of the next Navy-themed display, the Douglas R4D6S Dakota ready for duty, returning from a display at the Midlands Air Festival. The Dakota put on a fantastic display in the smaller confines of Old Warden, with its United States Navy paint scheme standing out wonderfully. This aircraft is operated by the Commemorative Air Force and is in the UK for the Navy to Victory Tour, and this was one of its first UK flying displays this season. Our final segment of First World War aviation came courtesy of the Bristol F-2B fighter from the Shuttleworth Collection, which gave a solo display due to the previously mentioned M1C suffering from technical problems. The next display pairing was due to be quite different, with the hopeful arrival at RAF Station Czechoslovakia's Avro Anson 1. Unfortunately, this was not to be, but we still got a pair of twin-engine aircraft, in the form of an Old Warden-based Dornier DO-28A1 joining the Shuttleworth Collection's Avro Anson 19. After a series of formation passes, the Dornier landed, making way for the Anson to perform an excellent solo display. The finale for the main flying display marked the 85th anniversary of the Battle of France. Starting this segment was a lovely solo display from one of the Cambridge Flying Group's de Havilland DH82A Tiger Moth 2s. This Tiger Moth has a significant World War II history, serving with the British Expeditionary Force in France in 1940 before escaping back to England during the Dunkirk evacuations. Next came a trio of iconic British warbirds, including the Shuttleworth Collection's Gloucester Gladiator Mark I, Fighter Aviation Engineering's Hawker Hurricane Mark I, and the Imperial War Museum's Supermarine Spitfire Mark 1A. After flying a series of glorious formation passes, the fighters separated. The Gladiator performed a punchy display before making way for the Spitfire and Hurricane, which flew in formation before performing their own solo routines to close out the daytime flying display. This particular Spitfire and Hurricane both flew during the Dunkirk evacuation, and both were shot down in France during this time. The evening flying display began after an interval to allow the golden light of the sun to set in. This was kicked off by a pair of Old Warden debutantes from the Fighter Collection, featuring their Curtiss P-36C Hawk and Curtiss P-40F Kitty Hawk Mark II Lee's Hope. The pair flew a fantastic series of formation passes with their respective chrome silver and desert camouflage standing out brilliantly in the evening light. The two fighters then split off and performed their own individual displays, which were both highly entertaining in the confines of Old Warden. This would turn out to be one of the last performances by the P-36C, which would later in the season be dismantled and shipped back to the United States under new ownership. Changing pace with the next item, the Western Lysander Mark IIIA from the Shuttleworth Collection gave a demonstration on the challenges faced by the Special Operations Executives during the Second World War. The runway was lit up with lamps by the French resistance to allow the Lysander to collect a spy and information from behind enemy lines. A brief firefight between the resistance and German forces erupted just after the Lysander took to the skies and performed a short solo display. Next was the Shuttleworth Collection's Tied Together Trio, consisting of the Parnell Elf, the de Havilland DH-60X Hermes Moth, and the de Havilland DH-82A Tiger Moth II. The three biplanes took to the air, tied together with bunting, and performed several formation passes without breaking their tethers until splitting apart at crowd centre. They then flew a series of tail-chasing manoeuvres to conclude this segment. The Shuttleworth Collection Supermarine Spitfire LF-5C took to the skies again for another spectacular solar display in the dimming evening light. This was originally going to be the closing display of the show, but that was not to be the case. As it happens, the wind had dropped enough that it enabled the Shuttleworth Collection's Row 4 triplane replica to put on a gentle series of flypasts to conclude a wonderful evening. The Bristol box kite replica was also brought out but did not fly due to the wind conditions picking up again. In conclusion, the Shuttleworth Military Airshow 2025 did not disappoint, with a whole plethora of fantastic displays. My personal highlights being the Spitfire and SE-5A formation display and the amazing Curtis Hawkes performance in the evening light. I was also very happy to finally see the Albatros D5A replica in the air, as I've missed it on many occasions till now. If you wish to see more of my photos from this event and others, I've linked my Flickr page in the description below. My next show will be the Abingdon Air and Country Show. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you join me in the next one. Bye!